Well, Sweden tried this herd immunity strategy, and it turns out thousands of people are dying for nothing. Check this out. Leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. So welcome back. I wanted to talk about the other big news story. In fact, basically the only news story prior to the murder of George Floyd. And, this eruption that has come about as a consequence of that, which is now, I think, rapidly, particularly in Washington, D.C., morphing into memorials for George Floyd, protests against all the other men of color and people of color who have been, Sandra Bland and others who have died at the hands of police or been murdered by police. But the other big story was COVID-19, the coronavirus. And the talking point that was all over Fox News a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, and was being recited on right-wing talk radio and right-wing hate radio and other conservative media was the Swedish model, right? The Swedish model. There was this economist in Sweden, I think his name was Anders Tegan or something like that, who had come up with this idea, Anders Tegnell. Who said, we're not going to have a vaccine immediately, and we don't want to destroy the economy, so let's get herd immunity. Yes, you'll have some old people die, you'll have some very, very out of shape people die, but most Swedes are not old, most Swedes are not out of shape, and so we'll be fine. Well, the Swedes have basically declared that their model has failed. The number of people, Sweden, Denmark, Finland, and Norway have more or less comparable populations, and in terms of size, in terms of basically, from genetic profile to economic profile to, fill in the blank. There's a lot of similarity among these four countries. Finland so far has had 58 deaths. Throughout the whole pandemic, 58 deaths. Keep in mind, we are at 107,500 right now, but set that aside for a moment. Finland, 58, Norway, 44 deaths. Denmark has had 100 deaths as of yesterday. Sweden has had 4,500 deaths. And the Swedish people are starting to revolt, basically. They're saying enough. And, we don't want this. In fact, overall on the deaths per million figure, Sweden has 450 deaths per million people. That's the worst in the world. Right behind them is the United Kingdom, 585 deaths per million. I saw a message posted this morning on Facebook. Or on Twitter or wherever it was on social media. And I haven't double-checked these numbers, but this person asserted that the UK is now hitting a death rate equal to all the rest of Europe. I find that hard to believe given what happened in Spain and Italy, but yeah. So let's not hear about the Swedish model anymore, okay? Because what's going on? Sweden has elected most recently. In the last, I think it's almost the last 10 years, Sweden has elected what they consider to be a right-wing government, a conservative government. And they've been pursuing some austerity policies, cutting back on their welfare state a little bit. It's still, Sweden is wildly, nobody is in deep poverty in Sweden. Nobody's homeless in Sweden, at least unwillingly homeless. Nobody is hungry in Sweden. Nobody nobody fails to have access to health care in Sweden. But they elected a right-wing government, and this is what they got. England elected a right-wing government. They're number 2 or number 3 in the world in terms of deaths per million people. We lead the world. We've got a third of the world's deaths. We got a right-wing government. Brazil under Bolsonaro is melting down right now, right-wing government. The Philippines, the coronavirus is burning through their country, right-wing government. Egypt, crisis, right-wing government. What we are finding is that those governments that are set up, and let's define right-wing government, a government set up to serve the rich and the business community first and foremost, and the people secondly, and the poor people not at all. And you could argue that a left-wing government is the exact opposite of that. Bring the poor people up to the middle class, strongly support the middle class overall, provide a fertile soil in which business can grow, but business isn't the first priority. And these countries like Norway and Denmark and Finland and that have what you would call progressive governments have very, very, Taiwan, South Korea have very, very few deaths. There seems to be a clear association between right-wing governments and the failure to protect their people. And America is coming 6 months down the road. We're going to have a new president, new Congress, God willing. In what, 4 months, we're going to have an election? July, August, September, October, November, 5 months, we're going to have an election. Are we going to go with another right-wing government, another right-wing Senate, another near right-wing majority in the House? We had a right-wing majority in the House until very, very recently. Is that what we're going to do? Really? More dead Americans? Is that what we want?